Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soul Science, Episode 11. I am, as you can tell, still getting over a cold, and we're just going to try to power through this. Today's episode is called News and Reviews, and I just thought, I read this article by Mark Judge at the stream. I occasionally write articles for the stream. I love this publication. And Mark Judge wrote this fantastic article. I just loved it. Called Christian Mysticism Keeps Us Sane. And I thought, wow, that's very much like my kickoff episode to Soul Science, which was, should doctors prescribe religion for mental health? But I thought, Mark Judge did it so much better. He's got like the sexier version of, the message I was promoting in my episode, right? I kind of gave the Ross Perot version, and Mark Judge had the very cool leather jacket version. Christian mysticism. I think mysticism makes it so much cooler. And but anyway, there's a lot of good in this article, and I think you guys, I've got the link up here, and I recommend going and reading this article. There's a lot of good stuff. Mark Judge does such an amazing job of weaving pop culture and intellectual culture. He does a very good job of balancing that, and you'll find that in this article as well. He's got a nice section on Lauren Daigle's new album, and that's it. I would say go there for that alone. He's got a clip of a recent concert with a couple of her songs on there. Wow. I mean, what an amazing performance. She's just got a unique voice, and her stage presence is just, amazing. The whole, and her band, the whole thing is just absolutely amazing. And Mark Judge, he sees something transcendent in the whole experience. But she's really, Lauren Daigle is definitely special. He's definitely got a religious take on that, which makes, perfectly good sense for a Christian singer and songwriter like Lauren Daigle. Let me read to you some quotes from Mark's fantastic article. Now, Root here is the author of a book, and I'm going to show you the book and a link to the Amazon page in just a second. But let me read this to you. Root has read dozens of celebrity autobiographies, as well as secular self-help books, and concludes reasonably that America is not crowded with secular atheists, but rather with would-be mystics. There's only one problem. Without God, these modern mystics are not only going to come up short, but may wind up in a bad place. Root preaches that the healthiest kind of mysticism is that preached by Martin Luther. As a Catholic, I would disagree with that. Who argued that we need God to truly deliver us from ourselves and permanently heal our sins. Excuse me. So, I got the link up there. You got to read this article. Great article. I've got some more great material from Mark here. These other on the screen here. These other forms of transformation cannot go to the depths we really need, Root said in a recent interview. The action you need to do is surrender and stop. The very thing that can save us is outside of us. If you've seen Jesus Revolution, you know what I'm doing. But if you're a Notre Dame fan, you also know what I'm doing. Okay? So, I like them. I like it either way, right? I like it either way. All right. That's a hard message today. Secular mystics are far outside the church. The more they tried to save themselves, the more they spun out and entrapped themselves. The transformation we need does not come by doing more and optimize ourselves. Root concluded. It's to open your hand to reach for God, right? Those who try their own secular mysticism can also find themselves trapped in the occult, which is a real prison. And I think there's so much wisdom here. And and so Mark here is quoting from the author of this book, who sees a danger, right, in going it your own with regard to spirituality, right? I mean, if you have a soul, right, which is what do we Christians believe? We believe that we're endowed with an immortal soul, right? And we also believe that soul is intimately connected to our consciousness, right? And this is such a spiritual idea. And everybody knows you don't need to be a Christian. These are even Eastern ideas. People speak of higher consciousness. Some people speak of expanded consciousness. Even the druggies in the 60s used to talk about stuff like that. Sam Harris, the new atheist, is into those kinds of experiences and so forth. And so consciousness, right, and the soul have always, traditionally, for thousands of years, they've gone together. And so, it makes sense, therefore, that our mental health, right, the health of our consciousness, is going to be connected to our spiritual health. And maybe this running away from Christianity was not a good idea, was not a good recipe for spiritual health. And so maybe it wasn't a good recipe for mental health either. And where did we get the idea that we could just make up our own formulas for, to heal our minds? Think about that for a second. Let's say you've got some serious illness. Imagine for a moment that you've got some huge growth on your arm, You probably would want to go to a doctor, I imagine, right? And say, hey, doctor, I've got this terrible growth on my arm. Can you help me figure out what it is? And it itches and it's all red and swollen. And what have I got? Can you help me out? But a friend comes to you instead and says, you know what? I've got the answer for you. Why do you trust the doctors? Why do you trust them? What makes them experts? I've come up with my own formula for physical health. What would you do? You'd ignore them, wouldn't you? Why do we think that the care of our minds should be treated so recklessly? Huh? Human beings have been at this and have been struggling with the human condition for thousands of years. Why do we toss out thousands of years of wisdom and think I can snap my fingers and make up my own stuff? It doesn't seem to be a good formula. And this fellow that Mark Judge is talking about here, that's the idea he's getting at, right? That, the whole spiritual but not religious, the whole Frank Sinatra spirituality, I did it my own way, is not panning out, right? We're seeing evidence of that. As I've talked about the Harvard nurses study so many times, it showed that people that went to church had better mental health. It didn't show that people that meditated had better mental health, or that people that did yoga had better mental health. It didn't show that at all. In fact, actually, the lead researcher makes that point very explicit, right? That is not what it showed. It showed that people that went to church had this benefit, right? Freestyle spirituality that's 5 minutes old may not be the best recipe for human flourishing. And that's what's being described here in this article, a wonderful article. And I discuss these ideas in my book as well, But I do appreciate Mark's leather jacket. Mark's leather jacket approach is so cool that I want to give him some credit there. I'm going to have a coughing fit in a second. So it's appropriate that I'm about to wrap this up. Excuse me. Anyway, this is the book that Mark Judge is discussing in his article. That it's a free-ranging article, right? As I said, it's got Lauren Daigle in it. He's got G.K. Chesterton in there, and he's got this book, which sounds very interesting, right? I'm sure there's a lot of things in here I disagree with. Mark actually does a good job of summarizing some of the big ideas in this book, and it sounds very interesting. And I might actually pick this book up for myself. I don't know. Excuse me. So it's by Andrew Root, The Church in an Age of Secular Mysticisms, Why Spiritualities Without God Fail to Transform Us. Yes, this is a major theme of soul science. Excuse me. One of the reasons why I speak confidently about my own spiritual practice and about its efficacy is because I didn't make it up, right? The stuff I'm talking about you can find in wisdom scriptures from 2,000 years ago, right? It's in the writings of the saints and doctors of the church, going back centuries and centuries, right? And they've been reaffirmed. You find them in the writings, in the teachings of Jesus, and in the writings of his holy apostles, in the prophets, and in the wisdom books of the Old Testament, and in so many of the church fathers. And I really crammed a lot of that stuff. A lot of that material is in my first book, which, by the way, it's called. I've got it right here. It's called. It's called The Immoral Landscape of the New Atheism, and it has to do with the time that it was published, right? 2015, The New Atheists were. Sam Harris had just published one of his last atheist books in 2014, and so this book came out a few months later. Maybe about 6 months later, my book came out, and so I was responding to his book called The Moral Landscape, so that's the reason why this is called The Immoral Landscape, because my argument was, there goes my phone, my argument was that in the absence of Christianity, the engine of civilization is lost. What is that engine? The human mind. The human mind is the engine of civilization. Oh, my phone's just not going to stop. All right, can I? Oh, you're not going to. I'm just trying to silence this thing. Okay, hopefully it'll be quiet. Anyway, the human. I am going to do this. I am going to, even if I've only got 30 more seconds, this thing's not going to stop. So I'm going to stop it. So if it's possible, okay, hold on. And then okay, that should do it. All right. And so, as I argued in this book, and I used a lot of data, the human mind is the engine of the soul, and the fuel, I argued, for that engine is spiritual fuel. It is grace, grace from God, which comes through Christianity. And I called that the grace hypothesis. A corollary to that would be the soul hypothesis, right? So my argument was that if the prediction was if you abandon Christianity and turn away from God, then you turn away from the source of grace, and that's the spiritual energy of the soul and the mind. And without that, the mind cannot function properly. And when that happens, the human person suffers, right? Because their mind is now disordered and just racked with so many problems. But then collectively, the social order also deteriorates because it depends upon the mind being ordered by God's grace. So anyway, that's, and I'm going to talk about my book. And, now that the New Atheists really are not at the front and center, friends of mine have suggested that I should give this book a new title and maybe a new cover. It was meant to be a dark cover, right? Because it's making a prediction. It's making a dark prediction that the loss of Christianity is not good for society. That's why I call it an immoral landscape. I call it more than that. I said it's not only immoral, it's also irrational and incompetent. And so I made many predictions at the end of it. Tragically, they're all coming true. Anyway, so that's a topic for future episodes. And, so we talked about a few things here. There are things that you would like to see happening on Soul Science. Let me know. As I said, I think it's time for us to maybe get a little more spiritual here on Soul Science. And I think I want to do some episodes on that. Anyway, I think that's what we're going to do. I think my next one is going to be Lent and Easter themed. And I'm actually looking forward to getting into that with you guys. So that's all for now. Thank you for joining me here on Soul Science. Oh, and if you've ever, you know that I have a link to Spotify. I just put up, but I wasn't very good about it. I'm so busy. I'm always doing things. I just have been focused on the video aspect, which you find on Rumble and so forth. But I'm getting back into the audio podcast. A buddy of mine, very talented musician, made me some good podcasting music, and I put that in the last episode, and it sounds great. Thanks to Paul, good guy. So anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy Feast of St. Joseph's Day. And I'll see you real soon. Take care.